Today's lesson is The Mysterious Portrait. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we are opening the door to the world of art. And we're talking about art in two ways. We're talking about the art of literature and the art of painting. And in terms of literature, of course, we've got a featured story for the month of September, The Portrait, or The Mysterious Portrait. And it's about painting. And in the story, we've got Chartkov, who is a poor artist, but he wants to perfect his craft. And later on, he buys this mysterious portrait in an art shop. And there's something really strange about the eyes of the subject. The subject, of course, is a moneylender. The eyes are disturbing. And, of course, the gaze is fixed on Chartkov. Chartkov spends his last penny to buy that painting. He has a dream, and then when he wakes up, he finds some gold coins in the broken frame.
And at first, he wanted to use the gold coins to become a better artist. Maybe that meant for him buying better quality paintbrushes or paints or canvases or to get a better studio with better lighting. So he had good intentions. But at the end of the last lesson, we were left with a cliffhanger. The last line was, unfortunately, this was not to be. So his intentions of becoming a really good artist did not materialize. Something else happened.
Yep, he wanted to nurture his own talent, but instead something else happened, and we'll find out what that thing is in today's lesson. So let's get to it. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson, and then we'll talk about it.
Chartkov's newfound wealth changed something in him. Reasoning that he deserved a lavish lifestyle, he bought new clothes and rented an expensive apartment. Then he took out an advertisement offering his portrait painting services for hire. Soon he had a steady stream of wealthy clients, and while he initially painted them in his own style, he eventually gave in to the fashion of the day. Though it pained him, he produced hundreds of these popular but unoriginal works, earning a reputation as one of the finest painters around.
各位好。第一部分我们看到形容词 lavish 指奢侈的、铺张的或是挥霍的。例如 The Hollywood star enjoyed a lavish lifestyle. 那位好莱坞巨星享受着奢华的生活方式。或是 For Valentine's Day, Hal served Lois a lavish meal made with the finest ingredients. Hal 用最上等的食材为 Lois 煮了顿豪华情人节大餐。另外，这个字也可以当动词。指慷慨的给予或是挥霍。举例来说 The hosts lavished gifts on their guests. 主办人慷慨赠送礼物给他们的客人。再来我们看到片语 give in to something 表示屈服或是认输。其中的 to something 可以省略。像是 I want to buy that cake, but I won't give in to the desire. 我想买那个蛋糕，但是我不会向欲望屈服的。或是Martin gave in and accepted he wasn't going to win the chess match. Martin 认输并接受自己不会赢得这盘棋了。
So diving into the first part of our lesson, it says here in the first line, Chartkov's newfound wealth changed something in him. Reasoning that he deserved a lavish lifestyle, he bought new clothes and rented an expensive apartment. So here we're talking about Chartkov's wealth, the roll of coins, gold coins that fell out of the painting's frame. And this wealth is newfound because he only recently gained it. He didn't have this money before. He got it only recently, so it's referred to as his newfound wealth. And this newfound wealth changed something in him. Something in him changed. He's not exactly the same person anymore.
Yeah, we'd all like to think that if we got really rich really quick, if we won the lottery or something, we'd still basically be the same person. But money can change a person, and it changed something in him, reasoning that he deserved a lavish lifestyle. He bought new clothes and rented an expensive apartment. So he had been poor for a long time, and he was a hard-working artist, so he reasoned that he deserved a lavish lifestyle. If you reason, that means you kind of come to this conclusion, and most of us probably reason that we deserve a lavish lifestyle. We've worked hard, we're smart, we all deserve that. So he reasoned that, hey, I deserve to have a luxurious lifestyle. Lavish just means luxurious. You have nice things, you spend a lot of money, you have lots of people who want to be your friend. And so he thought, yes, I need to buy some new designer clothes, and I'm going to rent an expensive apartment, maybe a loft in New York City or something like that.
Right. So that is the first step in which he began to depart from his original desire to become a good artist. To become a good artist, you don't need expensive new clothes and you don't need an expensive apartment. But with this money, this newfound wealth, that's exactly what he went out to buy to do. So then he took out an advertisement offering his portrait painting services for hire. So when you take out an advertisement, you're basically putting pictures or words in a public place or in a newspaper on the internet to persuade people to buy something that you are selling or to buy a service that you are offering. That is what an advertisement is. And the phrasal verb to use with advertisement is often to take out. You take out an advertisement.
Right. So back then, of course, people read newspapers, and if you wanted to advertise something, you wanted to let people know about your services, you would take out an advertisement in the newspaper. People would see it, they'd give you a phone call, or they'd send you a letter or whatever, and then you might have a job. So he took out an advertisement, and he was offering his portrait painting services for hire. If you're for hire, of course, people can pay you to do something. You might be a driver for hire, for example. People will come to you if they need a ride to the airport or something like that. So indeed, he offered his services. If you would like to have your portrait painted, I'll do it for you. Back then, photography was not quite developed yet, so most people had their portraits painted if they wanted a picture of themselves.
Yes, and that may not be considered artistic because if you're a portrait painter for hire, then you can also begin to paint portraits according to how your client wants to be portrayed in that portrait. So they might want to look thinner or prettier or younger, and in that case, you're not really staying with your own vision as an artist. You're just doing things to please people. So this is perhaps one way of interpreting this story of how Chartkov slowly departed from his original desire of being a very good artist.
Okay, so he had taken out an advertisement, and I guess people saw the advertisement and they were interested. So soon he had a steady stream of wealthy clients. And while he initially painted them in his own style, he eventually gave in to the fashion of the day. So, yes, he had a stream of wealthy clients, just like a river. They just kept flowing toward him. He had more work than he knew what to do with. And so initially, he painted them in his own style. Initially just means at the beginning. Remember, he's got his own unique style that he wants to nurture and that he wants to preserve. So that's what he did initially, but he eventually gave in to the fashion of the day. So people probably said, yeah, you're a good painter and your style is unique, but we don't really want it that way. Maybe it's a little bit too bizarre. We don't really want to look that way. We want to look like portraits that everybody else has.
Right. So here we have two adverbs, initially and eventually, and they often go hand in hand. Initially, as Roger said, means at first, in the beginning. So I could say, I initially worked as a secretary at the company, but then I got promoted to office manager. I could also say, eventually I got promoted to office manager, because eventually means at the end of a period of time in which many things have happened during that period of time. So eventually, after having worked at the company and after having been a secretary for many years and serving people and making sure everything got done, eventually, after this period of time of being a secretary, I was promoted to office manager.
Or for me, I was initially a journalism major when I was in university, but eventually I was a film major, and that's what I graduated with, a degree in filmmaking. But in any case here, yes, he started to paint them in his own style, but eventually, in the end, after time, he gave in to the fashion of the day. If you give in, you just accept something. Sometimes you ask somebody to do something and you don't take no for an answer. Eventually, they get tired of you asking and they just give in and say yes.
Yes, or if you're on a diet and then you pass by a bakery and you see chocolate chip cookies and brownies and cream puffs on display, then you're liable, you may give in to this display of goodness, of sugar, and you go in, you lose your self-control, and you buy a bag of cookies, a sack of cookies, and you eat them all.
So he adopted the mainstream style there, and though it pained him, he produced hundreds of these popular but unoriginal works, earning a reputation as one of the finest painters around. So yeah, he painted lots of portraits, and they were very, very popular, but they were unoriginal works. They were just kind of formulaic, the way that everybody else does them, and so that earned him a reputation. People like that sort of thing if you do what you're supposed to do. So he had this reputation. That's just how people think about you. You can have a good reputation or a bad reputation. And he had that reputation as being one of the finest painters around, even though he had sacrificed his own unique style.
Yes, so even though he developed a reputation as being one of the finest painters around, it pains him to paint paintings this way. So he wasn't happy with what he was doing. He didn't believe in his work and his creations. So even though he developed a very good reputation, he knew that his own works were unoriginal. They didn't come from his heart. They didn't come from his imagination. They were just like every other painting that was popular at that time.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part.
After years of financial success, Chartkov was asked by some art professors to provide his expert opinion on another artist's painting. This artist had devoted his life to refining his work, and the piece was so perfect that it moved Chartkov to tears.
第二部分我们看到形容词 financial 指财务的或是金融的。举例来说 Otis has been having some financial problems recently, so I lent him some money. Otis 最近有一些财务问题，所以我借给他一些钱。或是 The company is a financial group that offers many banking services. 这间公司是一个提供许多银行服务的金融集团。另外，在这个字的字尾加上 ly 就成了副词 financially 指财务上的或是金融的。我们可以说 My parents financially supported me when I was in college. 我父母在我念大学时在财务上援助我。接着我们看到单字 refine 这个字是动词，指精进或是改善，像是 The author has continued to refine his writing style over the years. 这位作家多年来不断在精进他的写作风格。或是 The engineers refined their design to make it more practical. 工程师改良他们的设计，使之更实用。另外，这个字的字尾加上 ment M-E-N-T 就成了名词 refinement， 指优雅、高雅或是有教养。举例来说 Queen Elizabeth is well known for her refinement. 伊丽莎白女王因她的优雅而闻名。
So Chartkov gains a very good reputation as one of the finest painters, and he's made a lot of money, and time goes on. And here it says, after years of financial success, Chartkov was asked by some art professors to provide his expert opinion on another artist's painting. So after a few years have passed, and during these years, he has had financial success, financial means related to money. So he has been successful financially. He's made a lot of money. Chartkov was asked by some art professors, teachers, professors who taught art at university or perhaps art history. They asked Chartkov for his opinion about another artist's work.
Okay, so that's what happened. They wanted his opinion, and the artist had devoted his life to refining his work, and the piece was so perfect that it moved Chartkov to tears. So here we're talking about this artist, and he had devoted his life to refining his work. If you work really hard at something and you spend your whole life doing it, we say that you've devoted your life to that thing. Dr. Lee, for example, has devoted his life to being a doctor. He has spent his whole life being a good doctor. And this particular artist was dedicated to his work. And this piece of art, this painting that he had done, was so moving that Chartkov actually started crying. That's so wonderful. Gee, I wish I could do something like that.
Yes, this piece of artwork, this painting, was a result of this artist spending an entire lifetime refining his work. So when you refine something, you want to improve it. I could say, for instance, I already speak a little Spanish, but I want to spend some time in Spain so that I can refine my knowledge of the language to make it even better.
You can perfect your Spanish skills there. And that's what this artist had done. He had devoted his life to perfecting his work, to refining it. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third and final part.
In that moment, reality came crashing down for Chartkov, who began to understand what the riches from the moneylender's portrait had taken from him. He had pushed aside his natural talent to make way for easy money. In a fit of anger, he seized the strange portrait and threw it away, but it was too late. The old passion he had sacrificed to it was already gone.
最后第三部分，我们看到片语 in a fit of 加名词，表示一时点点点在某种情绪之下。例如 In a fit of panic, I accidentally dropped a plate on the floor of my apartment. 我一时惊慌，不小心使盘子掉落在公寓的地板上。或是 The little boy threw his toy onto the ground in a fit of anger. 那位小男孩突然生气地把玩具丢到地上。
So Chartkov was asked by some art professors his opinion of another artist's work. This artist had devoted his whole life to refining his work. And when Chartkov saw this artist's work, he was struck by the sensation, by the realization that this artist's work was so perfect that it moved something in Chartkov. It made him cry.
So in that moment when he was moved to tears, reality came crashing down for Chartkov, who began to understand what the riches from the moneylender's portrait had taken from him. And we'll talk about that in a second here. But when something comes crashing down, that means your whole life changes, usually not for the better. So, for example, when my friend Kevin got divorced, his whole life came crashing down. He thought he was going to be with his wife forever, and he was emotionally disturbed by that. He lost his job, he started drinking, and he ended up a homeless person. So indeed, his life came crashing down when his wife divorced him. And that's what happened here. Reality came crashing down. He had to remind himself that, hey, I've been selling out here, painting all these portraits for people, and I haven't really been true to myself.
Yes, because in Chartkov's case, for years he had convinced himself that the meaning of life, what he wanted to achieve, was wealth and fame and popularity. But when he saw this other artist's paintings, he realized that all of that was a lie, that reality that he had created for himself was not reality. It was something that he convinced himself of. And now he knows that in order to be a true artist, you have to stay in touch with your original vision, with your creativity, and to not sell out to what people want.
So the riches from the moneylender's portrait, those gold coins, had taken things from him, and he had pushed aside his natural talent. He just ignored it. He didn't deal with it. He did that to make way for easy money. And as I said before, he kind of sold out there. He was not true to himself. He pushed aside his natural talent, and he just did what everybody else did. And he did it quite well and made a lot of money. But again, he kind of sacrificed his own personal goal, and in a fit of anger, he seized the strange portrait and threw it away. But it was too late. So sometimes when you get really angry and then you do something violent, we say it's in a fit of anger. In a fit of anger, I attacked the baby seal.
Yes, you can also use a fit of for other emotions. You can say in a fit of jealousy, for instance. In a fit of jealousy, he accused his girlfriend of seeing another man. Or you could say in a fit of panic. For instance, in a fit of panic, he ran out of the room and decided never to come back.
Exactly. So again, he seized the portrait, he grabbed it, and he threw it away, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. The old passion he had sacrificed to it was already gone. He had already sold out. He had already made money by being a mediocre painter, at least in his eyes, and now he can't go back to where he was before. So I guess there's a lesson for all of us to learn there. Let that be a lesson to us all. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to Hanny.
Hello， 各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分提到几位艺术教授请 Chartkov 来对另一位画家的画作来提供专业见解。那么课文写到说，The piece was so perfect that it moved Chartkov to tears. 那幅作品完美到让 Chartkov 感动落泪。好，句子里面用到 so perfect that 怎么样怎么样来表达如此完美以至于怎么样怎么样。那这边我们是要介绍几个句型可以用来表达如此怎么样以至于怎么样，或是非常怎么样结果怎么样。第一个句型是 so 加上形容词或副词再接 that 子句。那这个句型呢是要强调 so 后面的形容词或是副词来说明某事物的程度高到造成某个结果。那么 that 子句呢就是用来表达它的结果咯。举例来说 The patient was so weak that she could barely stand up. 那位病人的身体非常虚弱，几乎没办法站立。第二个介绍的句型是用 such 去搭配形容词和名词，然后再接 that 子句。如果是一个单数可数名词，我们就会用 such a 或是 such an 形容词，再加单数可数名词。那假设这个名词它是复数或是不可数，我们就会用 such 加上形容词，再加复数可数名词或是不可数名词。好，那我们来看一个例句。We had such fine weather yesterday that we spent the entire day at the beach. 昨天天气非常好，所以我们一整天都待在海边。第三个介绍的句型是 so 加上形容词，再加上 a 或 an， 再加名词，再加 that 子句。这个句型也可以用来表达非常怎么样以至于怎么样，只是要特别注意它的字词顺序呢是在 so 的后面先接形容词，然后才用 a 或 an 去接一个单数名词。举例来说，It is so cold a day that we feel like staying at home. 天气如此寒冷，以至于我们想待在家里。另外，如果是强调数量多到造成某个结果，或是少到造成某个结果，我们可以用以下的句型。你可以用 so many 或者是 so few 加上复数可数名词，再搭配 that 子句，或者是你用 so much 或 so little 搭配不可数名词，再搭配 that 子句。那我们来造两个例句哦。After posting the picture, she got so many comments that she couldn't reply to them all. 在 po 了那一张照片之后啊，她收到太多评论，以至于无法全部都回复。再造一个例句哦。We were having so much fun that we didn't want to leave the party. 我们在派对上玩得很开心，以至于不想离开了。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Advertisement. That company's advertisements make the product look really nice. Initially. Stan had initially wanted to study psychology, but he ended up becoming a teacher. Eventually. After traveling for many years, Robert eventually moved back to South Africa. Reputation. Gregory has the reputation of being very good at math. Financial. Daniel visited his grandfather to ask for some financial advice. Devote. Harriet decided to devote her life to finding a cure for the disease. Seize. The thief seized Stephanie's backpack and ran away with it.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, what do you think the moral of the story is?
Well, I think the moral of the story is something we have already mentioned several times, which is to not sell out. This is very important when you're an artist because to be an artist means to express your own imagination, how you see the world, and if you begin to create artwork that only responds to how other people see the world, then are you really an artist?
It's a good question. Well, I think the moral of the story is you should avoid impulse buying. Remember when he went into that art shop, he did not have to buy that portrait. He could come there every day and look at it. He didn't need to actually buy it. So the moral is definitely to watch yourself, don't do things impulsively, and you'll be all right. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.